All right, welcome everybody to September 18th. This is the LF Decentralized Trust Technical Advisory Council meeting. Everybody that's on the call is aware of these things, but I do have to repeat them. Two things that we must abide by on the call. The first is our antitrust policy. So we need to be aware of and not participate in any activities that are prohibited under any of the antitrust and competition laws across the world. The second thing is that while everybody is welcome here, we do have to follow our code of conduct, which is linked here in the agenda. We just need to be respectful of others on the call and their opinions and ideas, and we should get along fine. For announcements today, we have the Dev Weekly Developer Newsletter that goes out each Friday. If you do have something that you would like to include in that newsletter, please do leave a comment for consideration on the link that is in the agenda. Any other announcements that anybody has or would like to make today? Okay. If not, then we'll move on to the reports. So we do have a number of quarterly reports. A few of these have been merged. Thank you for getting the last reviews in for those of you who did review it. We still do have quite a few, though, that are outstanding that still need to be reviewed by everybody and provide their comments and feedback before we can get those merged in. So I'm really hoping that we can get these taken care of and off the agenda so that next week it looks a lot smaller than it does today. But we definitely are down to just these reports here that Raya is showing in the on the screen now. So yeah, thank you again for reviewing them, and please do continue to review so that we can get those taken care of. We also have some overdue reports, specifically Bevel and Besu. Arun is not here today, but I will reach out to him and ask him to reach out to those folks and see if we can get those overdue reports to come in. We do have the Q3 trust over IP report that is due next week, so we'll look to see that one coming in. Are there any questions that anybody has on the reports as they were looking at them? No. Okay. So then I think the discussion for today is centered on reports. The first is the trust over IP reports. So there has been some updates on the annual report and the Q2 report. Specifically, those trust over IP reports are currently in Google format. And they basically in turn point to Google Slides that are updates that have been given at their meetings that they hold for their members. So yeah, I think the request that has gone out to the Trust over IP team is to get those into GitHub so that we can review them there and have a look. David, anything else you'd like to add on that one? Did I miss anything that may have come in while I wasn't looking at my email?
On the Trust over IP reports?
Yeah.
So we did talk yesterday there's a Trust over IP steering committee meeting, and Carly did offer to submit it on GitHub instead of through Google Docs, although it sounds like she may be a little unsure of the process. So I haven't checked in on my email this morning. I don't know if she's resolved that or not, but we should be able to get it in through GitHub.
Okay, great. Yeah, Diane.
Yeah, I think it's important, not that they can link to the slides or whatever, but I think it's important that the report is submitted through GitHub so that we can capture, who is actually participating in the project by the person who submits it, and that it's official, and that when we put comments in or feedback, it's trackable. Google Doc, it's a low bar to enter the report, and I think that there's got to be somebody in that community that knows how to use GitHub properly. So I'd really appreciate it if they could do that, and don't, they don't have to write the slides or anything like that. Just link to the slides just as they have in the Google Doc. The other comment that I would make is the reports were the annual report they're very short, the Google Doc, so there's not a lot of detail in them. So I'm a little concerned about that, but we can, once we get it in GitHub, we can take a peek at it. But I don't know, David, if everybody's satisfied with that, the level of depth that they went into. But it's yeah. So maybe I'll have a conversation with David about what they were what they had, because as I'm the lead reviewer on it, there's not a lot of there to review. So
Yeah, Diane, I agree, and I think Rama had a thumbs up to your comments as well. But I think that, you know, we do need to get them to provide a bit more detail. I will admit, I hadn't clicked through to the slides, so I don't know if there is a lot of details in those slides or not. But definitely we want to be able to, you know, allow for people to comment and, you know, be able to better understand the status of that particular project and all of the working groups that are ongoing there. So we'll see what we end up getting coming through. Wenjing?
Yeah, let me maybe ask what detail is this missing? And this is been going back and forth quite a lot. Last time we heard was that the requirement is to file it as is. So this is the filing it as is, I think. The Trust over IP community have much detailed, long reviews and with long meetings. So I'm not sure what is missing.
so if Wei Jing, once it's in
Yeah.
GitHub, Rama and I will take a look at it, and then I'll talk with you and with other folks about what was agreed to already. I haven't been party to that conversation yet, so just if you can get it in GitHub this week, that would be great, and I'll put put comments in there. But I also don't have all the background in what was agreed to, just getting it there, and yeah, yeah. I haven't gone into depth with it because there's no place to put comments on it.
Yeah, I think Wenjing, one of the things that I would mention there is, you know, an annual report is supposed to be looking at what's been accomplished as well as kind of the future for the year, the goals that are trying to be set for that particular project. Obviously, Trust over IP is going to have a set of goals based on each of the working groups, right? And so obviously making sure that those working groups have something that they're tasked to work on for the upcoming year is important. That's typically what we would expect from an annual
That's a
review.
no end, Tracy. That is a no end activity. Each working group have much more longer documentation. You are open to see it. What are you looking for precisely? Like, what is a you know, I've been the advocating of completing this report, but I think I'm seeing the emphasis seem to be in procedures rather than the content of it. The exercise of annual review, it's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of activity. I think it's probably a lot more than most of the project will do. So this question of what's missing is very difficult to understand.
Yeah. So Wei Jing, I'm just going to say I haven't dove into all the slide decks. I've just seen the one pager. I was waiting for it to get into GitHub, so I can't answer that question yet.
What's
So
wrong with not in the GitHub?
because there's no way to track comments and for people to give feedback in a public and open way.
I think any of us can put it that you were saying a link to the GitHub, or you want the document to be in GitHub format?
So I think the important part is that we have a PR that has.
So maybe David can help. It's a PR one line that takes 30 seconds.
So just there's a lot of history in this. A lot of the early history of Hyperledger was lost because it was stored in Google Docs, and then people moved on and the documents went away and we didn't have copies of them. So having this documentation in GitHub gives us a durable copy of the documentation. So that
So you're
this isn't
looking
just a
for more
procedure.
than just a link then, right? You're looking for the document changing formats?
Yes. I know that there is a markdown exporter for Google Docs because I use it all the time. And I see that bunch of hands up. So
Yeah, and
David?
just to reiterate, I had talked to Carly. This came up when Jing, I think you may have been traveling, but this came up in the steering committee yesterday. Carly is offered to put it in, take the content from the Google Docs and put it into GitHub. So I think that is being resolved. And then just to reemphasize what Rai is saying, this is not just kind of an arbitrary procedural thing. I mean, as Rai said, we have had a history of losing content because somebody put it in a Google Doc and then deleted it or changed the permissions of it. So there are reasons for the ask. And again, I think Carly's in the process of trying to get this in there. So I think that part is going to be resolved soon.
Still, I think it's unclear what is being looked for. Again, in one of the last meetings, the agreement was that this committee is not aware or not familiar with trust of IP, and rather than debating which format, and that can go on forever, we agreed that trust of IP can submit whatever report they've been doing internally for years and years. Submit that as the new proposal, and then we can hear feedback for next year, what additional information they may want to, you guys may want to see. Because it's otherwise, I think this will go on forever. Like, I don't understand what is being asked for. Can we be more specific which words you want to hear? Like, what will
So-
be considered complete?
So what would, this is Diane again. So if you click, Tracy, on the Trust over IP annual report, and bring it up, all I am asking is that someone cut and paste that report and format it slightly into a pull request, in the governance, in the correct place. And it's not even one page with the links, so that those of us who are reviewing it and commenting on it, can do it in a public and open way, in GitHub. That's our process. It's not a heavy process. It's pretty much cut and paste this, not rewrite it, not change the links, just this. And the same with the quarterly report for the pull request. That gives us an easy way, Wayne, to take this content and comment on it. And I have to say, I really am looking forward to doing it because I am very interested in the trust over IP space. And so I don't think I actually volunteered, but I might have suggested it. So this is something that I'm really is near and dear to my heart for a lot of the DID work I'm working. So it's not anything, you shouldn't see this as restrictive or heavy process. It's just cut that, throw it in a pull request so that we can do our commenting here, because as David has said, we've lost content in the past, but it's also the openly governed way that we do this. And it's a pretty lightweight ask. It's not rewrite this, not asking for more content. It's just asking for a way for us to all participate in the commenting, using the tooling that we use. So you shouldn't look at it as a punishment or a big ask. It's really just cut and paste this, get, not whatever, Kathy or whatever her name was, from who volunteered to do that, and we'll be done. And we can do the review.
I mean, it should be as easy as file, download, markup, and then put that in a PR.
I want to, I think, follow up on if that's the ask, that's easy to do. However, that I think the conversation started with thinking this document is too short. Something's missing or it's not being included. And it would really be helpful if we tell clearly what is missing, what is being not included here, what are you looking for? And they will really close this loop rather than waiting and guessing each other back and forth numerous times now.
So,
So
and
what is
I
missing
will,
here
Wei Jing,
in addition to the format?
So Wei Jing, once you get it into the PR, I will go through all of that. And if there's anything missing, I will make a comment on the PR. I haven't done that yet, and neither has Rama. So I can't do this on the fly. I haven't spent time going through all of your slide decks or reviewing it. I've just been waiting for the PR.
Yeah. So I think, as with any of the reports that we have been getting, the comments are driven by the PR coming through, and people being able to actually dig into the content and be able to see, the questions that they have, the recommendations that they would make. It's been a while since we've done an annual review, but there is typically a set of recommendations based on the content of the annual review that comes in that people, as they dig in and better understand the project based on the PR, be able to provide back as feedback. So I think, yeah, it looks short now. Maybe it's not short. Maybe it's maybe all the detail is behind these links. It's just a matter of people being able to click into those links and be able to better understand. I still think that based on the slide deck, it is still going to be somewhat challenging for people to comment, just based on the fact that they will not comment on the Google Docs. I'm sure those aren't even open to be commented on. And so, it's going to be a lot of potential copy paste from those slide decks to say, hey, it's this particular working group has said that they've done this, but maybe they haven't set out goals or something like that, right? I don't know what those specific comments will be until somebody actually goes through and actually takes a look at the detail behind it. Wenjing.
Yeah, yeah. So I've tried to help. It's not my job to do this. That's why I'm helping the process in a way. But I just start to realize that I think the mode of work is very different, and people will have to figure out how to summarize for someone who are not familiar with this type of work, I guess. I don't understand really, if I were on this position to finish this, what you're expecting.
Understood. Yeah, and I think
specific would be very nice, because otherwise it's I think it's not productive.
Yeah,
It's
I think
wasting time.
your comment about this being a very different project is so accurate, and until somebody takes the time to actually dig in and understand, right, which is really Diane and Rama's job.
But this is a wrong assumption. The assumption is that somehow this filing of a PR will make you understand. I doubt that is the case. Not everything can be summarized neatly in a PR.
Rama?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to Benjamin's question. I will review it whenever we get the PR. But just want to ask Benjamin to, can you just go to the, whenever you get some time, go to the folder that I've linked to on the chat and see what different projects have, how different projects have deferred the reviews. I mean, we are not looking for like high level of detail about what's going on in the project and what your activities are. We're looking for some very specific things that will help us track how well your project is doing, and what are the future prospects of the project, and if there are any useful suggestions that the TAC can make to help you
Right.
along in your journey.
And
That's
it will be
basically it.
really nice to hear what that specific things are.
Can you just check out some of the examples of the annual reviews in that folder? I think you'll get a pretty good idea then.
Yes, I have. I've reviewed many of them. I would not go there. It will have specific things like line of code and what commits, and what if a working group never commits anything? How do you what is the summary looking for? I think we should give if the request be more specific, so that I think we can start this process and learn each other, and then come out a way for this type of project to do annual reports. I look
Yes.
at the many of the projects, their reports. I would not recommend that.
Yeah, so there are templates for both the annual review and the quarterly review, which I've linked here in the chat. So these are basically the things that we're looking for, right? We're looking to understand the project health, to maintain our diversity, who's adopted this project, the goals for the project, right? What the prior goals were and what the next year's goals were. Any help that the TAC can provide to that project, and then whether or not there's any life cycle status recommendation. Do they expect to stay in incubated? Do they expect to graduate? What status should they be in? Now, understanding these templates were put together when we only had code projects, so there may be other things that we should be asking here. If you have a working group that hasn't committed anything, what really is the expectations from the technical steering committee for that project when a sub project is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? Or in this case, a working group is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Does that working group close? Is there some sort of inactivity period that exists for trust over IP? And if so, has it met that inactivity period, and is that a time that some action should be taken? If those actions or those things don't exist in the technical steering committee, we do have inactivity policies that exist, and maybe that's something that trust over IP would like to adopt, that it hasn't done yet. So those are all sorts of things that I think are things that would come out of just a better collaboration between this group and the technical steering group for trust over IP. So if these questions are not the right questions that we should be asking trust over IP, what are the right questions we should be asking for trust over IP when it comes to looking at the last year and what the future year holds? For the quarterly reports, right? A similar sort of template exists with the sorts of things that we're asking for. If those aren't the right things to be asking for trust over IP, what are the right things that we should be asking trust over IP? And our standards types projects, right? Is there something else that we should be digging into? And hopefully when Jean is, the expert in this group of standards projects, you can help us to determine what the right things are to be asking, right? We can't tell you the exact content to put in here, but we can tell you the general sorts of things that we would be looking for. And if those general sorts of things that we're looking for are not the right things to be looking for standards projects, let us know. And we'll change these templates to put those things in place.
Yeah, these templates, unfortunately, I cannot complete it. These templates are seems asking questions that it's not very relevant.
Okay.
But
Well, hopefully you can help us understand what the relevant questions are.
I thought the agreement was that
It is, but what for next year, Wenjing? We can't have the same agreement for next year. What are the right questions we should ask? If this is what we get this year, this is what we get this year. But if next year we hit the same problem and we're
that's
9
not
months
what,
into the year,
that's not what I heard. We had this conversation earlier, maybe we should go back to the minutes, that this year's report will be what the Trust of IP typically do. That will be the report, and you can fill, questions and comments, so that next year, both of us, right, all would understand better. That will take time, and that would be for next year. So yes, we could, for example, strictly say you must meet this template for this year, or we could say here is what Trust YP normally do, annual reports or reviews, and submit that information as this year's report. And then we can have 1 year of time to understand the pros and cons of what questions being asked and what additional questions may be more relevant, or how people can understand this better. Like I said, I don't believe one can understand a project like a Trust IP based on one single PR. It just won't.
So I think we're saying the same thing, Wenjing. Maybe your this year and next year are not the same as my this year and next year, and that's where the confusion is. But I think we've all just agreed on this call and previous calls that as soon as that PR comes in, which has basically the content that you've already created, that is fine, right? And we'll work from there. I think what we're trying to say is that for 2026, which is coming up in 30 months, that we do need to understand what it is that we're asking from the Trust over IP and other standards types projects, such that it is easier for them to complete the information, right? So unless your next year is actually 2027, I think we're saying the same thing.
The another way we could do this rather than going PR back and forth is actually come to talk. So I would recommend that much more than trying to do it in a GitHub to understand a new organization. It's not neatly summarized with some, a few lines. And unfortunately, I think that would be much better process-wise, and which then I think we do have a real chance to understand better with each other.
Yeah, and we have talked about that in the past, and I was waiting on an email to find out who I should reach out to for that. So yeah, I'm completely happy to have Trust over IP come and provide an update as well to the TAC. But obviously, for now we're kind of in this. Let's look at the PR and have a look at it. Hart?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. So I think we're discussing, multiple issues here, and I just want to make sure we sort of, separate them out because I think some of them are probably easier than others, right? Um, so one issue which is alluded to by Rai, I think Rama and some others, is the GitHub versus Google Docs thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We like Google Docs for permanence purposes. So, so I think, the content of the report, aside, right? We can certainly, copy whatever, Trust over IP decides to report, right? And put it in GitHub, right?
Right.
Is
We like
everyone
GitHub
on,
for permanence, not Google Docs for permanence.
yeah, is everybody on board with that? Like Wenjing, is that okay? Like sort of we can talk about the content later, but sort of whatever we do, we just put in GitHub.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, perfect. Because I think that was one of the things. And then for the actual content, I agree that that we need to figure out, uh, what this should look like, and we don't have a good example. And it does make sense to just kind of like, let Trust over IP, for now stick with what they're reporting, and we can hopefully use their reports to put together to put together a report for a standards project, to sort of put together a template for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly the group is doing, and takes a lot of effort to sort of come up with a format that I think the tax is looking for. This, to me, this is a question of understanding rather than sort of designing a template. This is, you know, presumption that there is a template that can capture a new organization with some neat, parameters may not be accurate. I really want to put that forward as a way to say there are other ways to understand a project. And maybe that is a better way than, just sort of neatly force that into a format anyway.
Sure. And a template can be as broad or narrow as we want, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily as prescriptive as the template for the code projects.
Yeah, if that's the spirit here, I think we know a way forward. So I really don't want to sort of the comment to be, hey, here's what the template requires. Everybody else does this way. Why can't you? I don't want us to go down that route. That's all.
Got it. Tracy, is this making sense?
Uh, yes and no. That last comment is questionable, but I think up until that point, I was with you. I do think that there are specific things we need to ask as the TAC to be able to understand the health of projects, that they are working, that they're not in a state that is not progressing or producing. And it's not to say that Trust over IP is in that state, but in the future, we may have a standards project that is not producing standards, and they've, really should move from, say, a graduated state back to incubation, or they should be completely archived, right? So I think the point here is that we do have to have some consistency for the TAC to be able to, and I understand that we're not going to understand the full depth of things, but we will get a general idea of the success or failure of a particular project based on what the project is reporting. And if that's not the case, if we don't feel that our project updates are providing that to us, then that's what the second part of this conversation is all about, really, is better understanding how we should be tracking the health of our projects, regardless of whether they're code projects or standards projects or a combination of code and standards. So that, this governance body can make decisions about, whether or not a project should be graduated, whether or not a project should be archived. And that's the place that obviously it's going to take us time to get there with these new types of projects and organizations that are coming into LFDT, but it's still something that we have to do. It's something that this group is responsible for, and so needs to make some, choices. And those choices may be incorrect in the short term, right? But they are choices that can be updated and fixed, right? This isn't a static, you make the decision once and therefore it's done. This is why we're having conversations, the second part of the conversation, about project updates and what those should be. Are they bringing value to us? Are they not bringing value to us? And so, yeah, I think all in all, Wenjing, we are all on the same page. It's just a question of how do we make sure that we make some progress in the remaining 3 months, so that when we get to this point next year, this isn't a conversation that we're still having to this level of concern, right? Maybe there's minor changes that we're making at this point next year, but I think if we're having the same conversation next year, then we haven't done our job.
All right, I heard that feedback, and I think that this task is not on me, so I will definitely pass along the feedback.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the task for creating the initial pull request, obviously, Carly is signed up to do that. I think the ask from you, Wenjing, is that you keep us honest when it comes to what it is that we're asking for projects like Trust over IP, right? Because you have been involved in this project for a long time. You have the knowledge of the way that things are done for standards projects that maybe some of us don't have. And so, that's really the ask from you is as a member of this particular group, keep us honest about what we should and should not be asking from um,
Uh,
from these types of
Yeah,
projects.
may I say, I think the one last thing, and I should stop. Um, it is challenging. I've looked at this template for a long, long time to come up with something to seems like what this template is asking. Most of the majority of the questions being asked are not applicable. Um, and we want to sort of then maybe back off a little bit and ask, what are our intentions rather than what this
Yeah.
template says, right? Our intention is trying to, I guess, understand what the project is doing and how well it's doing, etc. Maybe that is better understood by attending some of these meetings, and then we can summarize in a way that hey, maybe we can come up with a template. That's going to take some time, demanding sort of like, hey, what is your goal? What the stage or I'm not sure what transfer IP is growth or something. It doesn't matter as much. So those are the questions I think people have in mind, and they don't quite understand what this is for. And if we soften these template requirements, rather to say, hey, what's the intent of this? And that way, I think people will be creative and figure out, what will be the good information to provide. That is easily summarizable. Not everything can be do that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I should
Yeah.
have taken enough time.
No, Wenjing, I think is a good conversation because I think this is something that is important, right? I think I come at this with a set of years of experience in the TAC, knowing why we introduce these updates, or why we introduce the annual reviews. And I think, part of bringing in new people to the TAC, bringing in new projects that are going to have to report to the TAC, right, is to be able to communicate why we did this. What was the importance for introducing these things, and why it is important to create these. I do recall at some point, and let me see if I can find it quickly. We did put together information about how these things are used. Yeah, so it's, let me just copy this into, this will probably not show up great in the, oh, it did. So this is from a page that's the index on the project updates. As it says why these things are used, what we do with these reports, the fact that the reports are used for reporting to the governing board on a monthly basis, what's happening in the general area of our projects. They're used obviously by us to look at the health of a project, including, whether we should be moving them through the life cycle stages. It says just dormant here, but it's really the whole life cycle stages. It's really used by people who are new to projects, who want to get a general feel for, hey, should I get involved in this project or should I not get involved in this project? You know, do I like what they're reporting? Have they been reporting the same thing for the last 3 months, or I'm sorry, 3 quarters? And therefore, you know, maybe that's not a project that is very active and I don't want to get involved with. You know, there's lots of different things that we've kind of said these are important for. And, you know, I think this is getting back to your, let's figure out what the intentions of these are. And if these are not the right set of intentions, and okay, let's change that and you know, be more specific about why we're looking at things. If there's other things that we should be talking about, that's great. You know, happy to talk through those and understand that. But I take your point, right? Is that the important thing is that we're getting what we're looking for, not that it meets some particular sort of template. I think the template is just there to help people better understand the sorts of things that would help us to, you know, understand the health of the project and determine whether that project should move in its life cycle. You know, because I don't think that people typically think about that with their projects, right? I think people are focused on the day-to-day aspects of their projects, and they're not thinking about, you know, are we doing the right things for, say, the community, or bringing on new maintainers? Have we even thought about maintainer diversity in the last quarter or not? You know, those are the sorts of things that I think are what we're trying to get to with these reports. And so hopefully that provides a bit more background. Maybe it's not enough and we need to do more in this particular section. Right?
I want to propose something.
Mhm.
I propose that we create another another one of these templates. And it would be specific for, we would take this, we would take the annual review template and say annual project review template and quarterly project, and then have an annual standards project and quarterly standards project template. And then keep the ones that we have as they are, and then iterate on what it is that the TAC needs and what it is that the projects can provide, so that we have, if you're a standards project, you know, here's how we do this. And I would propose that we could do this back and forth in developing the template with TOIP, with Trust Over IP, and maybe get to a better place faster. Diane?
I would help David, and that was actually one of the outcomes I was hoping to work with you and the staff and the Trust Over people to make that happen this year. And so, and then maybe work with them on the annual report for next year to fit something that works for them. That's a great suggestion, and I'd be happy to collaborate with folks on that. See if my fellows got up to
Wenjin, thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's I think what we are saying the same thing. That's a good idea. I just suggest we take longer to do this. There are a lot of I think information that is in different format, and narrow it down into a specific PR. It's difficult to do. So if the PR could allow links to PowerPoints, to recordings, to wiki pages, that would definitely allow this to be a lot easier. Because otherwise we will be doing spending a lot of time of sort of collecting statistics. I think that's what end up is people want numbers. And unfortunately, not everything can be put into numbers.
Art?
Yeah, so that's fine. You can absolutely link to that stuff. I think the ask is just that you upload all that stuff to GitHub so that it's permanent and doesn't go away. That's all. Like that kind of extra content would totally be encouraged.
because of, as far as I'm known, the trust over IP actually has a lot of status and all that. It's just not in the format that you're looking for. You know, I have done many code projects before, and I don't think code project will have that many documents. Trust of IP produce a lot more than that, but it's just that you know this template is not something we can neatly follow. So if we could, with that spirit, you know, we could allow, you know, some of the process and then hopefully come to a better way of doing this over time, not immediately. I think that will be helpful to get these points through. And point would
do
help.
we need a task force for this process that we can start and you know, have people join who can provide the information or the thought process or whatever that is for us to get to the place where we feel comfortable with having standard projects create updates. Yeah.
Tracy, what I would say is, could we get through this first review of the reports as is, and then see if we need that? And I apologize, Wei, I just did not dive in deep. I was waiting for a PR. This may be completely sufficient if the content is in GitHub for what we need, but I haven't looked. And then maybe after we get through this first review, then we could set up a task force to create a template and add it to governance. But I'd like to get through the first review, but yeah, time is of essence though too. I know because we've got 3 months before the next group of reports are due.
Yeah. That's fine, Diane. I think that's probably a good first step, right? Is to understand what actually exists out there today, and the sorts of things that are being reported on today, and to understand whether or not that answers the sorts of questions and provides the sort of detail that is needed to, you know, really look at the health of these projects, right? These types of projects. So yeah, happy to have that. I think, you know, we should be in a place within the next couple of weeks where we have a good idea about what we've been looking at. Obviously, it will depend on the timing, Diane, from you and Rama in doing the review once that PR comes in. But yeah, happy to take a look and dig deeper at that. You know, after the annual review has been completed, if you will.
Yeah, using that time to learn, I think it's a much more practical, and I think that's also more respectful. I would not want to impose my views what a project ought to be to somebody who's been doing it for many years, and I think it's that kind of a perspective. I think it's valuable and helpful for each other. Let's give it, you know, like Diane's suggesting, and I've been talking about this for a while. Let's, you know, meet the information and then think about before we jump into you know, new type of template, right? So take some time, and it's okay for a while that this information will come in different ways. But over time, we should be able to, you know, help produce a better template for the future.
Okay. It sounds like we have a plan. Wenjing, if you could send me that email with who we should reach out to try and schedule a future time for Trust Over IP to come talk to the TAC. that would be great. And then I can get that on the calendar as well, so that we, better understand the work that Trust Over IP is doing, and can ask questions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll make that connection.
All right, thank you, Wenjing. Appreciate that. All right, so we are 7 minutes to the hour. I would like to hold off on the next topic until next week, just given the amount of time that we have, because I'd really like to have a good discussion about the other sorts of reports that we're doing, just not Trust Over IP. So we will have a quarterly reports discussion, and talk through kind of what we've seen this year, improvements that we can make, things that we don't think are working well, things that we think are working well when it comes to the updates, and sort of what changes we want to see in general for our project updates and reporting. So with that, is there anything else anybody would like to bring up today before we close?
I would just like to make a reminder that the contribution ladder task force is going to meet in a half an hour. If you're available, it'd be lovely if you could join us.
Thanks, Diane. I probably would have forgot to do that. So thanks for that reminder. I also saw that Matthew is going to continue with the project consistency task force. I think that happens tomorrow. So people who are involved in that or would like to get involved in that can join that particular call too. Should be on the calendar for people who are interested. And anything else that anybody would like to bring up before we close? Okay, just one thing I will bring up is I did see a PR from Jessica on GitHub. There's been some back and forth comments there. Please do have a look at that PR as well. At some point, if we need to, we can bring that up in a TAC meeting. But obviously, if we can close it out on GitHub, all the much better. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and close for today. And we will talk again next week. Thanks all for the great discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you.